You had me fooled, man. I've been watching your Insta stories, which, by the way, I love because you take me into the New Zealand bush with you. You haven't shown me a feral cow yet. I know that you're
No,
holding
bro.
that secret for me, right?
We got those little locations, brother.
Do you
Have
know
you
that I
time?
found my gun? Did I tell you I found it?
No.
Again.
Did you? You
Yeah.
told me that at Seeker Show, eh?
No, I told you at Seeker Show that it was still missing.
Ha.
It was gone, like the Delta Airlines had lost it.
Yeah.
Went to South Africa after the Seeker Show. Met a guy who's in the cargo business. He said, send me the Weibull number. Sent me the Weibull number. He found it.
No.
I've got it here. My grandfather's 416 Rigby. Now, the trick is, can I bring it into New Zealand? I'd love to. I'm sure I can. I'm sure there's ways to do that. But
We've got to be pretty relaxed, surely.
it's just a matter of filling out forms and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, but yeah. So now I have the 416 Rigby to shoot a feral cow in the. Let me remind Mike. Is it the Terekas or what?
The odometer?
Yeah, that's what you said, right?
I've got a spot that's got like some beautiful feral cows at the moment. They come from like Angus genes,
Jeez.
and they are just
Are they angry buggers?
If you shoot them wrong, they can be for sure. Yeah, for sure. But like, you try not to, you know what I mean. Like, and I like to have a dog with me too, because man, they're sneaky. Like,
the cows are sneaky.
Yeah, like they're
What?
really. I had a buddy that was hunting mountain lions over in the States,
Okay.
and he was guiding, and a lot of the time he's like, "Oh, you'd be guiding, and then you'd loop back around on yourself, and they would have, been come back and followed you." And
The cows.
no, the mountain lions, but
Oh, okay.
the cows do similar thing, bro. Like they can smell you, so you're stalking up on one mob, and a bull will come behind you. So I quite like having the dog, just because it lets you know what's going on when you can't see it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But no, yeah, some, and it's been a wet summer so far. We've got some tucker on the ground at the moment, so everything's super fat.
Now
It's gonna be a
remember,
good trophy season.
listen, you're speaking to a majority of an American audience. So if you start throwing like Maori terms in there, they're going to be like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Oh,
Or did you just say tucker, i.e. food?
Yeah, food.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't actually a Maori word.
If I do though, can you be like,
oh, I'll pause you, like I just
Yeah.
did. Like tucker, what is tucker? No, it's
Yeah.
tucker, food, i.e. I get it.
Sorry.
Sam Gibson, welcome back to the Blood Origins podcast. Second time, right? Or first time?
First time, I think, my bro.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
So.
No way.
Pretty
How
sure.
have I not had you on the podcast?
I don't know, but we
I've had literally everybody from New Zealand on the podcast.
Maybe I've just been hiding in the bush, fella.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, if you don't follow Sam the Trapman Gibson, follow him because he takes you into the bush in New Zealand. And so that's what I was saying today. I was worried because I just watched the story of you coming out the bush. I was like, this bugger's in the freaking bush right now. Like, he's not going to make a podcast. Did he forget I had a podcast with him today?
Never forget you, bro. But always because there's no reception in the bush where we are, I'm dropping content in retrospect, which is...
okay. Semi-live Instagram stories.
Semi-live. A bit of an underscore on the semi.
Mm-hmm. When were you in the bush for that trip, that last trip?
Last weekend. It was amazing.
Okay.
Beautiful. And incredible trip, eh? Like, you've got some amazing woman hunters on Eastern Whio Link, and they're just so capable. And it's great. It changes the whole tone of a trip when you've got women out there with their dogs, and as fellas, we can kind of step back and carry the traps. It's
Mm.
really we're just so grateful to have some pretty incredible women on our project, eh?
Would you call yourself the executive director, founder? What are you of Eastern Whio Link?
I'm just a bushman, man.
No, you're not.
Yeah, a group of mates and I, we founded the Eastern Whio Link in 2020. It's the place where my grandfather taught us how to fish and how to hunt, and my father taught us about the ecology in the area. And at that time, it was abundant with bird life. So that's what we grew up with around us. Plenty of trout, lots of deer, but also abundant native bird life. And so when I came back to Waiaweka in my 20s, there were no birds left. So we got together with a bunch of my mates, founded the Eastern Whio Link project, a trapping project to trap stoats to get those birds humming. And yeah.
And you're just talking about, does it affect all birds, the predator trapping in New Zealand, or is it? I know Whio, and by the way, Whio is a native blue duck in New Zealand, and I have been chastised in the past. I'm like almost fluent in Maori now because I've been chastised in the past. Because I think I called it a Wio the first time I said it. Because it's spelled WHIO.
That's right. In our language, WH makes a F sound.
Yeah, and everybody climbed into me. It's not a Wio, it's a Fio, Robbie. Get it right. And I was like, damn, okay.
But that must be difficult for you, Robbie, because you are traveling around the world, interacting with like many, many indigenous peoples and many, many languages, and they must all have their own intricacies, hey?
They do, and I guess it's a little bit, I don't know, the reason I think I'm so successful in what we do is my superpower is just remembering I remember people's names, and I can remember phrases and stuff like that just very, very easily. And so people look at me and they're like, how did you remember that person's name? You met them a year ago. I said, it's just how I do it. I know it. So I used to lecture to like 85 kids in my applied aquatic and terrestrial ecology class as a university. And before the first day, I would say to them, I've got a reputation in this class. I don't take roll because I know if you're here or if you're not. And this is how I do. And I already memorized 6 people's names. This is first day of class. From their pictures, I'd say, you see that person in the purple? That's Jake Matthews. And he's like, holy shit, how does he know my name? And I'd go through 6 people. And then the next week, they'll be in lab. There'll be 3 labs of 30 kids each, or whatever numbers were. Something like that. And I'd start the lab to say, let me see if I've done my homework correctly. And I'd start at the back of the lab, and I'd just go through every single person without stopping. And I'd tell them their first name and last name. And I'd finish. And I said, did I get anybody's name incorrect? And they'd be like, nope. And so then once I knew everybody's name, if somebody was late to my class, 2 minutes late, and I was lecturing already, I would stop lecturing and I would go, Sophie Brown, why are you late to my class? I'd call them out. And everyone was just like, holy shit, this guy is just like...
instant respect, eh?
So it's just, I don't know, it just shows people that you're paying attention and you remember them. And luckily I can do that.
For sure.
So tell people about the Eastern Whio Link. The Eastern Whio Link obviously is a pet project of yours, but it's not uncommon what you're doing in New Zealand, right?
It's not uncommon what we're doing. At the time, it was uncommon for Hunter-led conservation projects. We just didn't have them. We had the Wapiti Foundation and the Sika Foundation. You've told plenty of stories about those guys.
And that was it.
That was it. I helped the Sika Foundation set up their project. I'd done work on the Wapiti Foundation down in Fiordland when I was working down there as a trapper. Came home, and there were no fuel left in our rivers.
What do you mean doing work as a trapper? You were gainfully employed trapping?
Yeah, bro, that's been my whole life. So as a 12-year-old, I was mischief as at school. So I was naughty as, yeah, I won't get too deep into that, but yeah, I was going on a different trajectory. We've got some pretty some other ways of employment here. in New
Sure,
Zealand.
sure.
And I was heading towards that. And so my parents, they sent me into the bush, rather get me into mischief in the bush than in town. And I got taught how to be a trapper. And so we were like living in the bush, in huts in the middle of like 7 hours walking. Sometimes the old boys would like, if there's no room in the hut, the young fellas would have to go outside, dig a hole, build a fire in that hole, let the fire burn down to coals, cover it with earth, and then sleep in your sleeping bags on top of that that earth, that heated up earth fire. They're teaching us how to eat out all the kai, but our whole thing in Aotearoa in New Zealand.
Kai is food, right?
Oh, sorry. Yep, food. Yep, my language.
Aotearoa is New Zealand.
Yep.
Yep.
And I
Go
guess
ahead.
that's the point of difference in our perspective on Eastern Whio Link than our other hunter-led projects. In our country, deer are introduced, trout are introduced, pigs are introduced, chamois are introduced, tara are introduced. All these species that we love to hunt now are introduced. But prior to the introduction of these species that came with colonization, we were still hunters.
But let me ask this: obviously you have a Maori background, Maori, dare I say, pedigree. Do you see it as? Do you see is there a difference in your mind between invasives, ferals, nuisance animals like stoats, rats, cats, possums, and deer, chamois, tar? Is there a difference in your mind?
So firstly, like, I wasn't raised Maori, although we do have Maori whakapapa in our family.
Okay.
I wasn't raised Maori, so that
Okay.
like my viewpoint probably isn't that of what you would call Maori.
Okay.
But I come from where I come from, and our culture on the East Coast,
Which is New Zealand.
yeah,
This is you. You're saying I'm a New Zealander.
yeah,
I've got some Maori in my past, but this is me.
and
I'm New Zealand.
particularly in my part of New Zealand, we're very Maori. Like, you walk down the street and most of the population is Maori. Go to other areas of New Zealand, you won't see Maori,
Right.
hardly any at all. So where I come from in New Zealand, the culture is very strongly Maori. So I just want to say that before I answer your question.
Yeah.
The answer to your question is that our peoples prior to colonization were hunters, skilled hunters. Land was carved up into areas where each whānau could hunt, where each family could look after that area to have abundance of our native birds for the purpose of hunting. And so I guess in our country, there is this, those that come from white culture see deer as like, wow, the best thing ever, and tar is the best thing ever, and chamois is the best thing ever, and that underpins what the Wapiti Foundation do, and it underpins what the Sika Foundation do. When we came to setting up a conservation project, our outlook probably is a little bit different, because ours is about what can that ecosystem offer us at this time. So our role is still to bring abundance to those areas that we hunt, like we did traditionally. It's the same concept. We eat out of this ecosystem, we've got to have abundance in this ecosystem. It's our job to be part of that ecosystem to bring up abundance. And so the question is not, is one better than the other? It's about, what can our ecosystem afford to provide us with now? So right now,
but I would challenge you. I'm going to challenge you because I think you'd appreciate it. I think there's a very clear difference between stoats, rats, hedgehogs, those kinds of invasives, and chamois, tar, red deer, fallow deer. And I hear what you're saying, which is there's an abundance question in here that we have to take into consideration from a deer perspective. But here's why I say what I say. There's no value in the stoats, rats, hedgehogs, cats, from a biodiversity perspective, nor human perspective in New Zealand.
So there is a differentiation there, but I want to scale it back to another thing that people are unaware of. So unquestionably, deer and tahr and chamois are having huge impacts on our ecosystems. A lot of the food that we eat has been eaten by these species. So that has a huge human impact as well. So if you're thinking about an ecosystem from a more traditional standpoint, you want to be able to harvest fruit, vegetables, and meat out of that ecosystem.
Okay.
When you have lots of deer in an ecosystem, you can't do that.
Correct.
When you have possums in that ecosystem, you can't do that because the deer eat the vegetables and the trees that provide fruit. The possums eat the fruit on the trees. The rats eat the fruit on the trees. The stoats eat your traditional food, your traditional meat, being your native birds. And the rats do too. So yes, there is a differentiation because we can eat deer. We don't like to eat stoats. We don't like to eat rats. Like, I've eaten rat before. It's nice.
Don't
Like,
tell people that, Sam Gibson.
if rats have been eating like our fruits out of our forests, they taste like lamb. They're delicious, but I don't really like to eat them. And the possums too. We can eat them. All of
I
us
could
who are
see
bushmen have eaten them.
you're gonna the next Eastern Whio Link course is you're gonna have a bunch of rats penned up, and you've been feeding them fruit for 6 months, and you're gonna make everyone eat lamb flavored rat.
Well, when I was in the bush in Fiordland, we ate quite a bit of rat.
Oh my
But
God.
again, like, that's just our culture. Actually, when rats were brought to our country by Maori when came over on the waka, they were bought as pets and as a food source. So eating rat is not something that culturally is foreign to our country. But I guess what I'm trying to say around that is there's two different ways of thinking. For us, it's like we are trying to bring our ecosystems back to abundance so that there's an abundance of vegetation, an abundance of fruit, and an abundance of meat in it. Maybe one day we'll have an abundance of our traditional meats, like our native birds. But at the same time, right now, deer and pigs are part of our ecosystem. Fallow deer, succulent and tasty. Red deer, delicious, Plenty of pigs too. And when they've been eating our tawa fruit, they become very sweet and fat and tasty. So I think that's the cultural difference, Like in the South Island and in more European-centric areas, you have people that are like, we want as many deer as possible. We want as many tahr as possible. But where we come from, we want to be able to have abundance in our ecosystem. So our deer need to be managed. We're really happy to have them in a contemporary context, but we also want to have our native foods, our traditional foods in abundance, and that takes humans being part of our ecosystems. We don't just come in to do the trapping. We live and we breathe and we eat and we have our kids, and that is where we live and how we live, if that makes sense. I think they're two different models.
So for those that aren't, that they've never experienced this idea of trapping, what does it look like in the Eastern Whio Link? And explain exactly what you're trapping for again.
So we're trapping these little creatures called stoats. I think they're very similar to your guys' ermine.
It's like a weasel, right?
Like a weasel. And they're
super aggressive.
They're gangster little guys, Their heartbeat beats 3 times faster than the human heart. They only have to eat every 10 days. They're like your local crackhead, They are constantly cruising around trying to investigate opportunities for food, and when they come into contact with an opportunity, they will kill everything they come into contact with. So that's why they have an impact on our bird species. And so what we do is we lay out traps every 100 meters down the rivers and every 100 meters down the ridges, and our hunters, we check those as we
Are
hunt.
stoats everywhere in the landscape, or they just focus in and around rivers?
They're everywhere in the landscape, but what we find on Eastern Whio Link is that if we trap the ones that interact with the rivers, our ducks thrive. And And if we trap the ones that, because they travel linear landscape features, so they'll travel the river and they'll travel the spurs, because they're like us, they're kind of lazy, they want to get around the easiest way possible. And so if we can trap the stoats on the spurs, our kiwi birds, that's what New Zealand is iconic with, that bird with a really long beak, they thrive as well. So what we do is we have those traps.
You have both. You have kiwi also in the Eastern Whio Link.
We've got pretty much everything, brother. Yeah, Our crew have been trapping for 4 or 5 years now, and we've got everything coming back. We've got kaka breeding, which are these
What is the kaka?
They're like a brown parrot with with a slight red tone, and they just tear everything.
They're different from a kia. That's a different parrot, right?
The kia loves the mountains.
Yeah, it's more of an alpine parrot.
Yeah, and the kaka is a bush parrot.
Okay.
Yep. And so they tear everything apart, and they break down old trees that are dead, and they break them down into the soil, and that rotten material falls into the ferns, and the ferns break that down into soil, and that soil feeds the trees again. So they've got quite an important job in the bush.
So you think stoats? How are stoats affecting kaka? Are they like?
So kaka,
are they nesting, and the stoats are climbing the trees and grabbing eggs out of the trees and stuff?
That's right. They nest in hollow trees, and stoats just run straight up trees and hoover up the nest. Yeah. Yep.
Are you So you've got these traps. Are they're talk to me about what a trap looks like.
So we run 2 types of traps. One is a spring-powered trap that is an L shape, and the animal walks in to get a piece of meat, and it walks onto a treadle plate, and the trap springs off and just turns it into a hash brown. It just squashes it. And there, I did all the initial testing on that. I helped develop those traps, and they are A-class humane. So everyone, we've got a thing in New Zealand that when we're killing animals, all of our traps have to be humane, and that means like irreversibly unconscious within 30 seconds. So they're good. And then we have another trap that's a resetting trap that that's gas powered, and it can kill 24 animals before it needs to be reset, which is perfect for our really remote areas because we don't have tracks where we work. The hills are real steep, and so we're often using the rivers to get into the back areas, into the back country. And so when our rivers flood in winter, we can't get to the areas we need to trap. So having those traps that can kill 24 stoats before they need to be reset is pretty key to the success of our operation.
How many traps do you have out right now in the Eastern Whio Link?
Over 1,000. I think we're sitting at like 1,100, and we're looking after like 30,000 hectares. Do you guys operate in hectares over there?
No, acres. But so that's about 69,000 acres.
Yeah. So it's not a small area, right?
Yeah, it's not a small area. And it's also not flat.
It's
so 69,000 acres in the ridges and mountains that you guys are operating in is probably feels like more like 150,000 acres.
She's pretty steep in there, eh? You lose
and
a lot of
it's all public land? This is private land?
Yeah, the majority of our project, 25,000 hectares of it is public land. Yeah. Everyone can access it. And so the whole community the hunters come from all over from the local cities, and they all come and hunt in this area, which is pretty special, We've got a lot of people that care about the place. People will come from our main cities, which are like 6 hours drive away, to come and hunt in this area.
Yeah, because that's what you're offering, right? I think that's the coolest part about this thing is that you go to work, dare I say work, that you are, have to move traps in, you have to check traps, you have to reset traps, but you get to stay in these cool backcountry huts that New Zealand has everywhere, which is public huts, which is just an amazing thing that New Zealand landscape has. And you get to hunt as much as you want. Correct?
Yeah, we can.
Unless you have to do the work first.
At the same time, we can pretty much guarantee that people are heading home with deer. And we pretty much guarantee if you want to catch a trout, you can catch your limit every day.
And it's not like maybe you are, and correct me here if I'm wrong here, but You're not saying, okay, guys, you're only allowed to kill this.
No, it's gloves off where we come from, and that's part of our thing, you know. The more deer we shoot, the more of our traditional foods there are. And so it's a good thing. If we're shooting our hinds, it means that we have heaps of food in the ecosystem, and that's more food for fat deer, but it's
Are you
also
not
more
worried
food for
about like exterminating the deer? Getting
bro.
rid of them all?
Some of the places on my project will see 200 or 300 deer in the morning.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, like like I know where other people come from, and they often put their own situation, overlay their own situation on our situation. Deer are an issue where I come from.
Hmm.
We see 200 or 300 deer. Our forests are falling over because there's an overpopulation of deer. And you know, in the United States, where there's a budget for monitoring deer, there's a really strong culture of hunting, and the opportunities need to be balanced out. In our area, there are so many deer that our forests are actually collapsing, and there's no budget to manage those populations. Herd management isn't part of our culture. As New Zealand, we have incredible organizations like the Wapiti Foundation and Seeker Foundation that are actively managing deer, but in the majority of New Zealand, it doesn't happen and there's no budget associated with it. So the more deer we shoot, the better in our situation.
Yeah, that's it. And then you can also fish as much as you want too.
100%.
And you got stacks of rainbow trout, which are again an invasive species. However, native trout have a hosey on them, not really technically a hosey, but they are free from persecution in New Zealand because of the economic value that it brings to New Zealand. Did you know that? Maybe I'm teaching you something.
What's it? I don't know what a hosey means.
You don't know what a hosey is?
No.
You don't. I'm probably saying it wrong. Hosey or whatnot. A hosey is a herd of special interest.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So trout doesn't have a hosey, has something similar, because otherwise it would have been persecuted. It would have been like, get rid of it all, shock it out of our rivers, get rid of it all. But it has a law in place in the New Zealand
And
policy realm.
There's two ways of looking at that, Robbie?
Well, no, it's because that's the whole reason why we want a hosey for tar. Fiordland Wapiti is chasing the hosey. Seeker's chasing the hosey. Is that we still understand we need to manage. We're not saying that. We're just saying we don't want you to expend tremendous government resources to try and eradicate something that brings economic value as well as all other things like physical health, mental health, whatnot, to
and we
people of New
couldn't
Zealand.
eradicate these animals if we tried.
No, exactly.
It's as simple as that, But there's two ways of looking at that too. So you're right. We got rainbow trout and we've got brown trout, and you're allowed to catch 2 trout a day. And it's pretty normal for us to catch anything from like 3-pounders up to 5-6-pounders in our rivers. And so that's good for our crew because smoked trout is on the menu.
Oh, brilliant.
All the time. But the other interesting side of that is trout actively eat our native foods, our traditional foods as well. And so a lot of the species that we traditionally harvested out of our rivers, we can't harvest out of our rivers anymore. So that ecosystem can provide us trout now. Many of us have aspirations that we can build our traditional food sources back. I would argue that still is fishing and that still is hunting. And so it makes, I think there's a space for herds of special interest. I think
there has to be. Otherwise,
there has to be. Like
we're just wasting resources. The whole point of hosey is to stop wasting resources fighting the forest and birds of the world who constantly want to stop what you're doing.
And they've got no idea. They don't have people on the ground doing the work. They're just so disconnected from what it actually takes to manage these ecosystems. They have no idea. But I think that there's a model here where we have hosey, like Seeker Foundation, Wapiti Foundation, Whitetail on Stewart Island. You have these real herds of significance. And over here, you have areas that are managed for biodiversity and traditional food. I think that there's two different land uses, and of course we can't have the budget to manage the whole thing for any one land use. But I think that both need to happen, because in our country, there's people that are here that have a way of thinking, and there's people that were here and are still here that still have a way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And both need to be recognized in our management of our ecosystems, and both are hunting systems. And I don't think that we can talk about hunting in New Zealand without acknowledging traditional hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next? Eastern Whio Link, you've obviously been going since 2020. With 3 years down the road, you've got 1,000 traps in the ground.
Over
Is the
100
Western Whio Link coming up next?
Possibly. Yeah, no, our thing at the moment is we are transitioning into a model where we've got over 100 active volunteers from all over the country.
And you're not even an official non-profit yet, are you?
We're a charitable trust. Yep.
Okay. And why are you not raising money?
We're trying. We're trying. So yeah, we're $1 million deep so far.
Good.
Which is good.
Shit, that's amazing, dude.
Yeah, we come across as a bunch of unorganized hunters.
Bushmen.
Yeah, exactly. But we're $1 million deep now. Our next thing is actually bringing on a coordinator, because the project has got so big.
Yeah,
that
100%.
To unlock that funding and to coordinate our volunteers and to grow the project, we actually just need to pay coordinator.
Yep.
So that's our big thing over the next couple of years.
You need to get that coordinator in place, and then you move to the next one, Western Whio Link. You started up there the same way. Put a coordinator in place, and just keep growing.
Because there's definitely appetite for our approach and what we do. A lot of white hunters in our country are actively they're coming to our project because they want to learn all of that food that they can eat out of our ecosystems, all that traditional knowledge. They want to learn that, so they all come to our project on Eastern Whio Link. They do trapping and they learn this stuff, and it helps them become better hunters. Because all the deer and that eat these foods, they're the same foods that we eat. So there's real appetite for more projects that essentially teach us how to be better hunters, but also sort of come from a different approach. There's a real groundswell of interest in a different approach to hunter-led conservation. So,
do you find that you get any pushback in what you're doing?
I mean, yeah.
What?
For sure. We
Who?
get heat.
For what reason?
Had death threats.
For what reason?
2 reasons.
Because you kill deer?
So there's a bunch of people, predominantly in the South Island, that think, so for us, if we shoot a deer, oftentimes if we see a velvet stag, we're like, oh, that's fat, that's delicious, that's going to feed a lot of families, that's going to go in the freezer, right? And so we're so happy to shoot a velvet stag because they're fat and they're delicious. A lot of people are like, oh, that's a trophy, you can't shoot those.
Oh, so you say the hate's coming from hunters?
From hunters. It's coming from hunters.
Okay, that's just jealousy then. What about anti-hunters? Do you get nothing, right?
So it's been a fascinating journey for us, so we're staunchly hunter-led. 80% of our volunteers are hunters. But in the last couple of years, it's been very interesting because we've seen and I'm kind of I'm confused about the whole thing myself to some degree. We've seen an influx of people wanting to come and volunteer on the project to learn our way of life, who are vegetarian and vegan. And it makes me
interesting.
I'm baffled by it,
Well, I'm not, because I've spoken to lots of vegans, and the vegans that I've spoken to that are rational will say if they chose to be meat eaters, or if they were to agree with a meat eater, it would be people like us that choose to hunt. because the meat essentially, and here's an argument that you probably don't know, and it's good for you to bury this into your brain. Not that you don't have to use it very often, but you could almost argue that it is acceptable for a vegan to eat your meat. And here's why. A vegan has strong animal ethics, animal rights, right? Like we don't want to impart suffering on the animal or anything like that. How many times are you shooting a deer because of overpopulation of that animal? So by shooting that deer, you're actually doing a benefit to the overall population from an animal health perspective, an animal ethics perspective. So it's vegan. No, I know
It's
that's
as close ethically to vegan as we
it's
can
as
get. And I think
close as you can get. And I've had a lady who is a vegan in the UK hunt a Chinese water deer because they were overpopulated and felt that she was okay. She had, in her mind, wrestled with the ethics to say, I can eat this meat because it checks all the boxes for me of why I chose a vegan lifestyle.
And we see that, like at the weekend, we had a bunch of our 7 crew were hunters, and we had 2 vegans on the trip. One of our hunters, Harriet, she shot a young stag, brought it back to camp, and the vegans took home venison because we can eat that meat. We can't eat the meat from the supermarket or the butcher. Yeah, so they took home
See,
venison.
I told you.
And I think to me that's the benefit of what we do, is like we are a hunter-led project focused on ecosystem literacy. All walks of life turn up for that ecosystem literacy. Maybe it bridges some gaps between different areas of our society. I don't know.
I can see that. I can see that. I like the idea of ecosystem literacy. To wrap this thing up, talking about ecosystem literacy, I'm looking at a web page right here that says Occam's New Zealand Book Awards announcing top titles for 2025. The winner of the prize gets $65,000. And the book that you wrote, what is it under? Nonfiction?
Yeah, nonfiction. Illustrated nonfiction.
Sam the Trapman, Cracking Yarns and Tall Tales from the Bush by Sam Gibson, Allen and Ewan, New Zealand. Has an asterisk by your name. What does the asterisk mean? That you a strange fella?
Probably, I imagine that's what it means. No, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but
represents debut authors, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. I didn't know how to write a book. And
how long did it take you?
About a year.
I could imagine that, yeah.
1 day a week for a year. I work as well, and then I run Eastern Whio Link on the side, so pretty busy. And yeah, 1 day a week for a year, and it was a bit of a journey, learning a new skill. So
did you write it and then sell it, or did you sell an idea and then wrote it?
I didn't do any of the selling. The publisher rang me up and was like, "Do you want to write a book?" And I said, "No."
Really?
Yeah, I said, "No, I don't want to write a book."
You don't have an agent or anything like that?
No, I do now, off the back of the book. But yeah, so no, the publisher rang me up. Well, they sent me an Instagram message and were like, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" I was like, "I'm not old yet. Like, I feel like potentially it's a little pretentious for someone of my age to write a book." And they're like, "How about we send you a contract?" And they sent me a contract. I handed it to the wife, and she looked at it and said, "You're writing a book." And so I wrote a book. There you go. Wrote a book.
She was like, "I need upgrade on this house. I need to put an addition on this house. You're writing a book, Sam Trapman."
Literally, it took our family from living in the hood, like intense area. We had 4 shootings on our block in a year, and 3 stabbings, like intense area. It took our family out of the hood and put us into a nice area of town. So if that's what writing a book achieved for our family, I'm super grateful, But I have been really interested to see how a hunting book would go in New Zealand book sales. and it has been absolutely eaten up. And so that's been fascinating because I was like not sure that there were enough hunters in New Zealand or enough hunters that love to read that the book would be able to compete with normal books. And goodness me, as you say, like we've been nominated for a book award, which is just crazy.
That is crazy, dude. That is crazy. So the book is called "Cracking Yarns and Tall Tales from the Bush" by Sam Gibson. Can people in America buy it? Like, how can somebody buy this book?
Yeah. So
And by the
there's
way, I have read the entire thing.
I'm sorry.
I loved it. No, it was great. It was good because it tells you all of your history of your trapping and whatnot. It gives you a little bit of insight into New Zealand hunting and trapping and whatnot. I love the way it's put in there. I will say this. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. There's a picture in there that was taken during a Blood Origin shoot.
That is 100% true. Yep. On Eastern Whio Link, a Blood Origin shoot by
I'm
our
just
good
saying,
friend.
I don't know if there's a commission involved in this thing. What I'll do is I'll just take a feral cow. How's
You'll
that?
take a feral cow? Well, next time you're in New Zealand, turn up because I have a block that has got some very, very big, very, very juicy and tasty feral
Okay.
cows. And I reckon, can you take meat home with you?
Nah, we'll
No.
just eat it there.
So you just have to stay here until you've finished eating
Finish the whole cow?
Yep.
Okay. So where can people buy the book?
There's a link to Australian store, and it's $10 shipping anywhere in the world. So
$10 shipping anywhere in the world. Is that Australian store, Allen and
Allen and
Unwin?
Unwin. Yep.
That's the publisher, right?
Yep. Otherwise, you can buy it on all of those platforms, like
Just
Amazon
type in
and things
Sam
like
the
that.
Trapman, Cracking Yarns and Tall Tales. Is the next book being written?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that information.
Okay, so the answer is yes. I understand.
Yeah,
We're looking forward to it. You
Yep.
didn't say it, I said it. It's all good.
Cool.
Anything else, Sam? Where can they find you?
Just on the usual socials, Sam the Trapman on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all of those things. We're just putting out fun adventures all the time.
Yep, you do certainly have fun adventures. And again, I'm working on getting my back in good shape. And once my back's in good shape, then we're coming to hunt. Okay.
Don't worry about your back, Robbie. You come over here, fella. I've got a whole stack of young fellas that'll carry your meat for you.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. You have a wonderful day now, my man.
You too, brother. I appreciate you, eh? Keep doing what you do. We really appreciate the work that you do for our whole way of life across the world, brother. Without
You're
you
welcome.
looking after our way of life, it wouldn't look the same.
You're welcome, brother.
Appreciate you.